I didn't want to take Suze's advice, but it was, I think, a smart thing because in her mind, she said, you never know what's going to happen, which is true. I could have lost my job, but I didn't. But I didn't know that in 2012. I happened to have a really good career with a company that thrives during financially bad times, I guess. You know, a lot of times I look back over my working career and it's really interesting because for 15 years of it, it was not good. And then for the rest of it, it was good. Because a lot of times people will say, well, Evan, you went through the biggest bull market in history. A bull market is when the stock market just keeps going up and up and up, which is true. But sometimes they fail to remember that when I was maybe your age, if you're in your 20s, I had it really bad. I was eating peanut butter sandwiches for weeks on end because I had no money. I kept losing jobs. Even though I went to college, I could not get my act together. And this went on from age 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. In 1998 is when I got the job with this company that I'm with now. Things started to change. However, from 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, I was living paycheck to paycheck. Not really saving more than 3% into my 401k. So just think about those many years that I just rambled there. And I still arrived at 1.6 million at age 58 because I had to put a lot of my own money, thousands of dollars, $60,000 right now I'm putting into the market, into either savings and investing. You know, that's 70% of my total income right now. And I've been doing that for 6, 7, 8 years. Every year it gets to a little bit more percentage-wise. So it's been, I wouldn't say hard, it's just been, I had to be dedicated because I did not have that opportunity when I was your age to save more. So if you can save just a little bit to offset that bigger need to get to the same amount of money that I got to, then do it. Because I'll be talking about this week, if I haven't done so already, a concept known as coast fire, where you can get to and hopefully get to a large dollar amount, and then your money just continues to grow, and the younger you get to that number, the better, because of compounding interest in the market for many years. Anyway, I went off on a tangent, didn't I? But it's so important. Cheers. Is it getting light out yet? Not really. Now it's 6:02 a.m. So, let's continue on with my rambling coffee talk about my mortgage. So there I was, again on the Suze Orman show. I did, as I mentioned, refinance. Great. So here I am in 2012, refinancing to 3.25%. The loan amount was $55,000. I had to pay some closing costs. I don't remember what those closing costs were. I think about $5,000 or something. But I did the math. See, when you refinance, your payment goes down. And I was like, oh, okay, how many months will it take me to recoup the amount of money I had to pay to do the refinance. Does that make sense? I don't remember what it was, but I finally got to that break-even point where I made that money back. Now, as I'm clipping along in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 2019, how many years is that? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 7. Okay, so I had a 15-year mortgage. I was about halfway in. Yeah, I was halfway into that loan in 2019. The balance, because it's amortized, right? You're paying more interest in the beginning, but I was able to lower my balance from $55,000 to $30,000. So there I am in 2019, 5 years ago. If you're watching this in 2024, feeling very confident about the past 7 years. You know, go back and watch my episodes where I talk about market returns in the stock market from like 2013. My portfolio went up 20-some%, more than that. We had some really strong years in the market. Yes, there were some that were kind of flat, like 2018. My portfolio returned virtually zero. And we were on the brink, unbeknownst to me at the time in 2019, really, but 2019 was a strong year in the market. 2020 was a strong year, even though we had that V-shaped recovery. And 2021 were the strongest years in the market, where my portfolio exponentially went up quite a bit because of all the hard work I did previously. And I bought the shares, and then all of a sudden the market goes up. And I was positioned to be there when that market went up. So those years, I was feeling really good, meaning I was starting to talk to my employer about early retirement, believe it or not. I trusted them enough to say, hey guys, I'm thinking of retiring. And there were a lot of things going on at that time. I chose to stay. It was through the pandemic. I was able to work from home. I didn't have to travel anymore. So things were really going very well for me after so many years of things not going well. And I didn't feel like I needed to leave the company yet. Even though I was at $1 million net worth in 2020, I was elated. You know, when you get to that point, that milestone, whatever milestone you get to, whether it be 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, etc. Celebrate those wins. And for me in 2020, you know, I had a podcast, I think I told you, called Broke at 40. So in those episodes, I celebrate the fact that I got to $1 million net worth, and it was in 2020. So that's when I started also thinking, right? Do you remember in 2020, the Great Resignation? Everybody was talking about resigning, because a lot of people were receiving stimulus checks, of which I never got one. And people in lower paying positions, I guess, like retail, fast food restaurants, people were saving a bunch of money, I guess, during that time, and savings rate went up. And I just remember hearing about the Great Resignation, and it fueled my desire to satisfy my goal of retiring early. But then I went into a tailspin of, Evan, what are you going to do? Just because you can retire, does that mean you should? And even if, I don't know if I should have retired back then, you know, looking back now, I'm better positioned now. That was $1 million net worth. Now I'm at 1.6 just in 4 years. Again, because remember I said I've been saving $60,000 or $70,000 of my own money all of those years for 4 years. And then we had really good market returns. in 2019, then I was feeling good, and I said to myself, why not just take the money that you've been saving and pay off the mortgage? So I think it was October of 2019, I sent a certified check to Wells Fargo for the $33,000, and I paid it off. I could not wait to go to the Wells Fargo app to see that it said paid in full. I remember I had to rush the check to the post office to send it to them. They wouldn't take an electronic payment. And I got to tell you, it was the best feeling in the world to know that then your home that you live in, this place, is yours. As long as I pay the property taxes, which, by the way, are only $500 a year. Incredible. I live in Florida, as I mentioned, and it's homestead exempted. So it's much lower than it would be, but in Florida we have homestead exemption. So as long as I pay property taxes, as long as I pay the association fees, which are going up, you've heard in the news with Florida, my association dues right now are $600 a month, I think. It's just going to go higher. But when I look at my budget, I always pad it enough to cover that because I don't want to move. At least I don't think. As I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing with you guys what's going to happen in 2025. I'm not going to tell you right now, but I have made a decision about the next phase of my life, and I want to share that with you guys as I go. And by paying off your mortgage, which is the largest expense you'll probably have, it's the largest expense I ever had, gives you options for things to do when you get to my age. You guys are probably in your 20s. Some of you are in your 30s. You might be in your 40s, but based on the stats I get from YouTube, I know most of you are younger. And so if there's anything you can learn from this video is to try your best to get your home. If you own a home, you don't have to. There's many schools of thought. I truly believe if you do not want to own a home, you do not have to. But if you buy a home, maybe subscribe to the philosophy that I had, which was one and done. Buy one home and keep it. Unless you want to get into the real estate market and buy and sell and all that and make money, that was not me. Listen to your heart. Do what your heart is telling you. My heart was telling me, buy one property and stay there. Remember, I've talked about this before. Reinvent the space. In fact, see the space right now? That brown couch has got to go, I think. And I have another brown chair over here. I painted the walls white back in 2022. So I started making changes to make the space feel more open. Whenever you start feeling like you need to move to a bigger place, stop and ask yourself, what can you do in your space now to make it feel larger? And for me, through the years, that was getting rid of a bunch of junk. And I still feel like I can do a little bit more to open up the space. Maybe get a white couch and, just update it a little bit. So, as I think about wrapping up this episode, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope that as I've been rambling about my mortgage, I look back on it and I'm so glad I made those choices. And I want you guys to be so dedicated to what you want to achieve in your financial life that it really should be your top priority. You're going to have lots of priorities in life, but make one of them to be financially free. So, just to close out this episode, what I've been talking about, go back to part 1. This is part 2. Paying off the mortgage. How did I do it? I just sent as much money as I could during those years. Remember the years where I was like making extra principal payments? It's never a bad thing because you're still digging away at that principal. And every time you do that, it opens up for less interest that you'll pay on payments later because you'll get it paid off sooner. You can go to Google, just Google calculators that show you if you put extra principal payments down, how many months will it take you to get it paid off. I was obsessed with those. I would print them out, take a marker and figure out how many months it would take. I actually did it in 2005 on paper. I spent like 3 hours writing it all out on paper. So become obsessed with numbers. Become obsessed with your goals. Nobody's going to know what you're doing. We don't talk about things like this. But there are people out there like me that you never would have known about. You never would have known based on the fact that I live in this small little condo, that I've got a $1.6 million net worth. Nobody talks about it. So, again, if you can get your largest expense paid off, meaning your mortgage, and by the way, you would want to make sure that you pay off other things first. So there's an order to this. Don't be silly, right? You've got to pay off credit card debt first. And once you get to those points, remember, one of the best things you can do with personal finance is to know where you are and what to do in the year that you're in. I will never stop saying that. You have to have that awareness. But when you do get it paid off, that's when you start thinking differently. You will never be able to think differently until you get to the point where you want to be. Because in our brains, we don't allow ourselves to think a certain way if we can't have it. Which is why, at this point, I am being more honest with myself in terms of what I want to happen in 2025. And I would only be thinking this if I was able to reach financial independence. If I was still living paycheck to paycheck and spending all my money, I wouldn't be thinking about other things I could do in life other than working for corporate America. Does that make sense? Because you will not let yourself think things if you can't have it. Only when you get to a point of financial independence and freedom will you allow those feelings to come up and to think about what's truly possible. So with that, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. Give me a like if you did. Those of you that are new, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.